You know that feeling, right? You talk yourself into buying something incredibly expensive just because it feels like a moment you absolutely cannot miss. Well, trust me, you are not alone. In this explainer, we're going to expose exactly how these once-in-a-lifetime events brilliantly hijack our financial judgment. And today, we're using the upcoming World Cup as our ultimate case study to unpack the hidden machinery that practically forces our wallets open and look at the real math behind what it actually costs us in the long run.
To really wrap our heads around this trap, let's start on day one with two identical fans. Let's call them Danny and Wes. These guys are the exact same age, live in the same city, make the exact same salary, and get this, they both have exactly $9,000 in savings. But when the tournament comes to town, they make wildly divergent choices. Danny, oh, he's hyped. He screenshots his ticket confirmation, drops it in the group chat, and his phone just blows up. For months, his entire personality is basically, I'm going to the World Cup. Wes, on the other hand, is completely quiet. He takes that same $9,000 and taps it into a broad market index fund. I mean, there's no group chat for a guy who just bought a mutual fund, right? So on day one, Danny definitely feels like he's winning by a mile.
But here's the thing. The trap for Danny actually started with an incredibly deceiving number, $60. When prices first dropped, Danny saw group stage tickets starting at $60. He gets hooked by the illusion of a totally reasonable price tag, thinking, hey, this is doable. That's basically just the cost of a nice dinner out. But that $60 seat, that is just the bait. It's the equivalent of, the middle seat in the back row by the bathroom on a budget airline. It gets his foot in the door, but it is absolutely not what he actually ends up buying.
Now, what's really fascinating here is that Danny isn't just making a weak choice, he is actively responding to a massive, highly sophisticated machine. The tournament runs on what FIFA very politely calls dynamic pricing, but really it's a system engineered to completely bypass your normal financial rules. It uses artificial scarcity, your own deep obsession with your team, and those incredibly stressful ticking countdown clocks to find the exact moment your financial judgment just goes totally quiet. Danny ends up buying multiple group stage tickets and a gloriously overpriced knockout seat because in his mind you don't fly all that way for just one game, right? And just like that, $60 suddenly becomes $2,000.
And this perfectly illustrates how the rest of his savings just completely vanishes. Let's break down these costs, because it's a swarm of seemingly small, totally justifiable upgrades that devours Danny's entire $9,000 budget before he even steps foot in the stadium. You've got connecting flights across a massive continent at peak summer pricing. You've got hotels that definitely read the assignment and quietly tripled their nightly rates knowing literally the whole planet is coming to town. And then there's the small stuff, right? The rental cars, stadium food priced like it's a rare mineral, the overpriced beer, and of course that required $100 polyester jersey. None of it is crazy on its own. But put it all together, and the trip doesn't just fit his budget, it eats his budget and licks the plate clean.
So, because the trip completely wiped out his savings, Danny has to somehow bridge the gap. He turns to the phrase brilliantly engineered to make a massive financial decision feel like a light snack: 4 easy payments. He starts clicking Buy Now, Pay Later buttons and loading the rest onto credit cards at north of 22% interest. He is essentially financing a party. And the brutal truth about financing a party is that the party ends, but the payments sure don't. He's going to be paying off a 1-month tournament until roughly the next one rolls around.
Now, before you start thinking you're completely immune because you'd never fly across the continent for a game, you've got to consider the ambient spending trap. Even if you are literally sitting on your couch at home, the system finds a way to quietly extract money from you. Maybe you sign up for a streaming bundle just for the tournament and totally forget to cancel it. Or you rack up patio tabs at the sports bar every single time your team plays. Or you download betting apps promising these free money wagers right up until the exact moment the house inevitably wins. You might not spend $9,000 like Danny, but you can easily drop $900 in ambient spending without ever even feeling it leave your hand.
Okay, let's pivot back to Wes and see how his situation builds, because his path is the exact opposite. Wes does the absolute hardest thing in all of personal finance, which is absolutely nothing. In year 1, his path is agonizingly boring. He's up maybe $900, feeling like the guy who brought a calculator to a party, while Danny is out there sharing incredible photos. But jump to year 10. That untouched $9,000 has more than doubled into the mid-20,000s. The snowball has officially found the hill. By year 20, the quiet violence of compounding takes over entirely, and that original $9,000 turns into roughly $60,000, and Wes hasn't added a single dime. But here's where the math gets genuinely mind-blowing. People don't just do this once. The tournament comes back every 4 years. If they repeat this exact same choice over 5 tournament cycles across 20 years, the contrast is just staggering. Danny keeps buying the experience, and Wes keeps buying the asset. By the end of it all, Wes is sitting on over $150,000. That's a paid-off car, a kid's college tuition, or a massive dent in a mortgage. Danny, meanwhile?
Well, he has some aging photos and a jersey that has gone completely see-through at the shoulders.
So the crucial takeaway here seems to be that Wes's spreadsheet is airtight and honestly a little smug. But if we stop right there, we are missing half the picture. Because a spreadsheet cannot measure the profound human value of having a legendary answer when your 7-year-old looks up at you years from now and asks, "Dad, were you there?" I mean, there's absolutely no index fund on earth that pays out the dividend of looking your kid in the eye and saying, "Yeah, buddy, I was there."
Danny actually wasn't being an idiot. He was purchasing what psychologists call a memory dividend. Research stubbornly and consistently shows that spending money on experiences makes you happier, and for much longer, than spending money on things. Material possessions just kind of fade into the background of your life, but experiences do the exact opposite. They actually grow in your memory. You naturally edit out the sunburn, the delayed flights, the overpriced beer. All that remains is that amazing goal in the 89th minute. And this dividend starts paying out joy the second you book the ticket, well before the event even begins.
And we have to be fair and acknowledge that this specific tournament actually is a rare anomaly in Denny's lifetime. 2026 is the first World Cup on North American soil since 1994. It is the very first one ever to feature 48 teams, and frankly, it's highly unlikely to return to Denny's backyard while he's still young enough to comfortably chase it across the continent. This totally validates his deep emotional urge to participate. For a fan, it genuinely is a once-in-a-generation moment. But it is absolutely vital to realize that this once-in-a-lifetime illusion is so powerful, it doesn't just trick individual fans, it tricks entire governments. Just consider this devastating number, -38%. Even the host cities fall for the exact same trap Danny did. Studies on mega events show that when cities spend massive amounts of public money building stadiums for these tournaments, they average a -38% return. That is an economist's very polite way of saying the city literally lit public money on fire and just handed taxpayers a month-long party as a receipt. The illusion scales all the way up.
Fortunately, you don't have to choose between being Danny drowning in debt or Wes entirely missing out on the fun. There's a third option here, what we can call the conscious spender. This is the fan who intentionally secures that awesome memory dividend, but plans ahead to kill the predatory financing. They save the cash over 2 years instead of swiping a card, they deliberately pick just one group stage match, and absolutely skip the insanely priced marquee final that usually costs more than the rest of the trip combined. And rule number 4, they absolutely refuse to use buy now, pay later. They escape with all the joy and zero financial hangover.
Ultimately, neither Danny nor Wes is a fool. The only real fool is the person who lets a ticking countdown clock make their decisions for them. That clock is never there for your benefit. It is there to stop you from pausing to think. So the next time you're being pushed to buy something once in a lifetime, pause long enough to ask yourself what you actually want that money to become. Are you consciously buying a legendary weekend, or are you quietly buying a secure decade? Check the real price and then make absolutely sure you are the one making the choice.